into our discourse this afternoon. Like I mentioned earlier, Lagosians protest increasing cost of rent. The Lagos Island chapter of the Take It Back movement on Sunday joined other residents to protest against the high cost of housing in the state. The event, tagged Lagosians Walk for House Rent Relief, took the protesters on a peaceful procession to the various parts of the island. In a video seen on social media, the protesters complained about the rising cost of housing in the area, describing it as unaffordable to the masses. A statement by the group posted on X on Sunday actually said, and I quote, "This is a national call to enforce housing right. Housing is a fundamental human right and the government has a duty to ensure it is available to all citizens." Some of the places the protesters actually passed through were Adeniji Adele, Tom Jones, Tinubu, Igbo Shere, Catholic Mission, and Campbell. And of course, if you're very conversant with Lagos, you know these are like the hot areas within the Lagos Island axis of the state. All right, let me throw this to my guests. I'll start with my studio guest. Chief of said this issue of house rent, becoming unaffordable to the masses. Okay, first let me paint a vivid picture here. Now, according to available information online, rent in Lagos, in the last 1 year increased by over 200%. What we're talking about is a typical 3-bedroom flat that was previously between 500,000 to 800,000 has now increased to 1.5 million naira. All right, this is aside from other charges that you are asked to pay, such as caution fee, agent fee, legal and form fees, and it goes on and on. Agent and agreements, they come up with all sorts of things. Now, a 2-bedroom flat is as high as 1 million naira, 1.2 million naira now in Lagos, while a self-contained unit could be as high as 600 million or even 1 million naira, depending on the area of Lagos where you are renting from. And this is in a society where the minimum wage is still pegged at 30,000 naira. So annually, we're looking at 360,000 naira, if I'm correct. All right. So how does this work, seeing that there's already an imbalance, in the system, as it were?
Well, the rent issue in Lagos has been a perennial issue. It's been there for as long as, the rent problem is associated with cosmopolitan nature of the city. Perhaps if you still go to my place, you could still get a 3-bedroom flat at 150, 200. But this is Lagos where so many people are chasing a few apartments. And so if you don't want, someone else is ready to pay. Don't forget, there was this issue that we were battling with 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. I remember when I first rented my house in Lagos, I used to stay with my brother in 2005. I have to pay for 4 years because I practically built the house. So
4 years?
Yes, I have to pay for 4 years. I lived with the house for 5 years. So I live for 6 years, yes. So and when I paid for 4 years, the house was not complete. They asked me to pay another 1 year, which I did. So, but I lived in the house and I forgot that I'm a tenant. This is a true life story.
Okay, that's going on to your life experience there.
So, like I said, so I have to pay for 5 years. But let's look at the issue around it. Like the protester said, housing is a basic right of the citizens. That is for one of the functions of government, housing, and that's why we have Ministry of Housing. And you ask yourself, the low-cost estate that we are building today. We had Trafashola did so much in Lagos in terms of low-cost estate building, and those low-cost estate building became not low-cost anymore, because what the government did was that they built these houses, unlike what Jakonde did, and allowed the middle class, the poor people, to take possession of those houses.
Exactly.
What the current governments are doing is that they build these houses and they're supposed to be low cost, and they sell it in a very high exorbitant fee So these people now give it out to recoup their money because they are seeing it as business. Now, I feel that in the end, the government has failed in terms of housing. All right. Now, I remember 1998, 1999. I remember housing for all in the year 2000. Free water, clean water for all in the year 20,000. Now, all of those slogans have all passed away, wiped out. And what is the state of the housing in Lagos? Lagos needs so much housing, needs so much apartment. You don't even need to build 3-bedroom flat. For if you are building for low-income earners, you don't need to build 3-bedroom flats. Why don't you do 2-bedroom flats across? And you know, government knows that what they are paying currently as wages is far too low for an average Lagosian to stay in Lagos. Now, you see in Lagos, you see an agency of government in Lagos going harassing the owners of these houses for land use charge. So all of this, the tenants are not the one paying. The landlords are the one paying. The government of the day keep putting one levy or the other on the houses, and the landlord must also find a way to stay afloat. Some of them,
and they at the end of the day put all this back on the tenant.
You understand?
Somehow.
So they are not going to pay for it because most of these landlords are not living in the houses that their tenants are living. All right? They build it and they live somewhere else. So at the end of the day, how do we balance this out? The government must come in. It is another ridiculous aspect of renting in Lagos is agent and commission. I don't understand where that is coming from. Now, why would a landlord who is very agile is giving his house to an agent who sit down, does nothing, and make almost half of the money that the landlord has made? So the government has done enough to say, please don't do 2 years as it were before. All right? Can we do 1 year or monthly or bi-monthly or quarterly?
You know, the state government was actually proposing.
They have done that. The state government in Lagos have done that. And that's why when you go to get an accommodation, nobody is telling you about 2 years.
2 years, you pay.
So
I need the monthly payment.
Yes.
They were deliberating on that as well.
You know, the monthly payment will also be a burden to the tenants. Because when you are working in a place that you are not being paid as a Wendy, it becomes a problem. You may not be able to fulfill your own obligation at monthly. So a lot of tenants in Lagos will actually prefer yearly. That will give them time to save, and at the end of the day say, okay, I'm going to save this time and pay, or 6 months at the very least. So I feel that the government must come in. Yes, I understand that the challenge of accommodation, housing is synonymous with the cosmopolitan nature of the city, because a lot of people are coming in. As we are talking today, there are lesser people living in Lagos than people coming in. So people that are coming in are more than the people that are living. So there is going to be a crisis of housing. However, the government must address it immediately, because housing, security, water, and food are essential need of man.
Thank you so much, Chief Apostle. All right, let me go to my virtual guest at this point in time. Now, Prince Chidaka, we all know that high inflation rate has affected literally the cost of everything, including building materials, okay? Now, do you think that justifies the indiscriminate increase, that landlords are now practicing in terms of rent? Or do you think they are just taking undue advantage of, people, Lagosians who are desperately in need of where to stay? What are your thoughts, sir? I cannot hear you through my talk back. I can't hear you. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Most of the landlords are contractors.
Thank you. I can hear you now. Go ahead.
And unfortunately, we have a government that does not have any social security or any social plan for the people. Ordinarily, the issue of housing should fall under the Consumer Protection Agency, where they should delineate the areas and fix minimum and maximum prices based on the number of rooms. But unfortunately, this is not happening in Nigeria. Nigeria has become a country where nothing works. People do what they want to do and they get away with it. The government needs to sit up. Each time we talk about government, people will say, why do you blame government? The increase in rent is not government. It is government because government is not doing what they're supposed to do. Nobody's checking anybody. It's like when you're building a house and you're using inferior materials to build, government doesn't care. The only time you see government coming up is when there's a collapse and all of that. That is the only time you see government coming up. So government needs to do more to protect the people from landlords who have become something else, from landlords who are benefiting from a bad situation. Like Efoso said, when Jakonde built his own houses, he called them low houses meant for the rich. Only a big disconnect between the government and people. There's a big divide between the rich and the poor. It shouldn't be like this. Something needs to be done, and it falls on the government to do the right thing to ensure that the people are protected from those who would want to abuse them or take advantage of them.
Quickly interject at this point, Prince Chilaka. Now, Chief of Force, while talking a while back, also mentioned the fact that even the landlords are not spared, all right? The government imposes, levies, tax, and all sorts of payments on them as well. Where do you want them to get the money from to also, even out? Because they are in it for profit at the end of the day, all right? The business of landlord tenants is not a charity one. It's a profit-oriented one. So what do you have to say regarding that?
Well, it's still the same thing I'm saying. The government needs to change their policy. The policy whereby government keeps collecting, keep laying, imposing taxes, keep doing everything just to make sure that they collect from the people. The government must give back to the people. The government, in giving back, must look at the issue of housing, they must look at the issue of transportation, they must look at the issue of electricity, they must look at the issue of medical. But unfortunately, nobody is doing that. I mean, if we're talking about housing, have you looked at recently that, do you realize recently that the electrical bill has gone up? Before you can buy 201 units for 10,000. Now you are buying 148.7 units for same 10,000. And nobody's explaining anything to anybody. So we're in a country where there's no accountability, there's no transparency, people are doing what they should do. The government needs to, be more proactive in dealing with issues. It's not just about taxing. The government must also provide a soft landing for the citizens. Things are really tough out there. Things are really hard for Nigerians. So the government must come down on its taxes in order to ensure that those who render services do not overburden the people who receive the services.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Chilaka.
Yes, I just want to tip in something. Chilaka has said quite a number of things, and I think I seem to agree with him in his submission. However, let us not forget that the realtors is becoming a very big business in Nigeria, the real estate business, and I think it's one of the most vibrant apart from perhaps telecom and banking. And all of these guys source their funds through banks, and they have to pay very high interest rates at the end of the day. But like I said, the landlords in this economy is a function of economy. Today we are talking about last year, the year closed with 28.92% inflation. All right, so a landlord is still going to go to the same market that we are going to. Is he going to purchase somebody who's selling Gary has actually increased his Gary per kilo? Is it not what you guys call it? Per paint bucket. Somebody who sells rice has gone up from about 32,000 naira to about 60,000 naira. The landlord is going to buy from there. The landlord does not grow his own rice. He doesn't grow his own Gary or cassava. He doesn't grow his own yam. So he's going to go to the same market. So as it's a function of economy at the end.
How do you justify the increase in rent though? Okay, yes, the price of everything has gone up. I'm asking, like,
So that's why I'm coming.
especially if you are a landlord of a property that is not exactly new. Do you know what I'm saying? You are not just building the property in this economy that is highly inflated. Do you know what? So how do you justify that?
Who tells you that a landlord whose building is about over 40 years doesn't want to renovate the building, doesn't want to make the building, modernize the building? He's still going to source money from the same property to renovate, to make it look new. All right? So at the end of the day, he's looking at all of that. That's what I'm telling you. It's a function of economy. At the end of the day, if the inflation begins to come down, you begin to see less pressure on landlord to increase salary, to increase money. Now, how did it, for a school that does not use fuel, how was it convenient for them to increase school fee when the first subsidy was removed? Why did they do it? So because it's a function of economy. The teachers will come to work using vehicle. So at the end of the day, you are going to consider increasing teacher salary. All right. So at the end of the day, it is a function of economy, and I think the buck stop at the table of government. Whatever you are going to talk about it. I am in this place I came to Lagos 1998 to 2003. I was living with my brother. The landlord never increased rent. He never increased the rent for one day.
All that period.
From 1998 to 2003. He never come up with the issue of rent increment. So what happened? Because things were a bit stable from that point to 2003. All right? So if the government can work on the economy, make the living standard of people a bit okay, all of this increment here and there is not going to happen. You know that in Ikeja, there are some places that are selling per a liter of fuel 630 naira. In Abule, what I'm saying, there is a mobile that's saying 565 naira. So it is a function of the economy. So if you can now say that those who are doing taxi in Ikeja that are buying fuel at 630 naira will now charge the same rate for people in Abule buying at 620 naira. So what is happening in Abule is different from what is happening in Lekki. Again, there is demand. It's a function of demand and supply.
Right.
In these places, I land in somewhere like Lakwe, lands are cheap. But when you come to Lekki Phase 1, lands are not cheap. Because people want to stay in Lekki. Nobody wants to stay in Lakwe at this time. Perhaps a time will come when Lakwe will be going.
Okay. All right. Now, back to my virtual guest. According to available statistics, Nigeria currently has a housing deficit of about 28 million. If I'm correct.
More than that.
Million,
It should be more than that.
It's going to take an estimated 21 billion naira, all right, for the government
sort that out.
To close that gap.
But can't we do that? 21 billion naira.
21 trillion naira, to close that gap. So I'm asking Prince Chilaka, seeing that our books are not balancing at the moment, economic-wise, where is 21 trillion naira going to come from the government coffers? Because they keep saying that money is not available. And it is evident in literally everything they're doing, they're borrowing to do, to carry out projects and all of that. So how really can the government begin, with their intervention in this issue of housing deficits, especially in Lagos State? Go ahead.
So as I was saying, a country where the leaders are not accountable, the leaders are not transparent, the leaders have lost the trust of the people. Nothing works. Every year, we keep hearing humongous amount being budgeted for housing by every government. Where are these houses? Where are these houses? So it's not a matter of saying you need 21 trillion or 21 whatever trillion. It's not about the money. It's about the sincerity of purpose. It's about the political will to build these houses and make them available to those who need them. Even when the government builds these houses, who are those that buy these houses? It's the same people in government. It's the same ministers, the same permanent secretaries, the same directors. They are the ones who buy it and begin to lease it out to people. So we need to go back to the drawing board. We need to ask, maybe we need to go and resurrect the lives of late Jack Conde and ask him how he was able to do it. How he was able to build houses that people could afford to buy, people could afford to rent, and have a comfortable home. So when government comes and reels out figures and all of this, I just laugh because it's all part of the scam that we're having in government. I believe that if government is willing and ready to provide housing for the Nigerian people, they will do that. We will not need to be buying cars of 160 million, 130 million for one person when there are other pressing issues in the country. Housing is one pressing issue that needs to be addressed, and government knows how to address it. How can you be budgeting 15 billion to build a house for the vice president when a lot of people are sleeping under the bridges? So these are questions that are begging for an answer. The government needs to prioritize what it wants to do for the and do it properly. But if you keep telling me, there's no money to do this, but then there are money for frivolities. There are money to pack a lot of people to go to Dubai for a conference that they don't need to be there. There are money to send people abroad to go for medical attention when you have your hospitals that have become moribund. So it's not just about housing. It's about a holistic review of governance in this country.
All right, thank you so much, Prince Chilaka. All right, still on this matter of demolition, let me come to my studio guests now. My heart breaks, especially for young people who are just starting off in life, especially if you choose Lagos as your place of abode. You get what I mean? I don't know how you're going to do it because it's especially harder for people who are renting afresh. Do you get what I mean? It's really hard than for people who already live somewhere and they just renew their rent at the end of the year. But that's an aside. Now, I want to ask this question. Is it right or justifiable for a government, to be demolishing houses in a state where already, thousands of people are homeless, as it were? People are under the bridges, they are living on the street, in market sheds. When it's night, that's when you see the reality of this housing thing we're talking about. I mean, we all know what has happened in the course of about three decades now in Lagos State. It started with the demolition of Maroko. That was in the 90s,
yes.
And all of that. What happened in Maroko? It has become like an elitist part of VI, right? Yeah, thousands of people, became homeless. And the homes we're talking about, it's not even, the condition they were living in Maroko.
Yes.
The most recent of the demolitions is the one in Oworoshoki.
Yes.
We saw that over 10,000 people were thrown out of their homes. Yes, I get the fact that they were demolishing houses that didn't get the right permit, that were illegal according to the government. Who gave them permit to build in the first place? That's another question for another day. But then, seeing that the state has an issue with housing, should the government be demolishing houses?
Patient, two wrong cannot make it right, because people are looking for where to stay. Government must not close their eyes on the disaster waiting to happen. Okay, one of the reasons why government demolish houses, one, is for development. Okay, when I was growing up, in my place, in my Oron, there's Maritime Academy on this side. All right. Now, on the other side, they call it government reserve area. Nobody was allowed to build on that side. All right. So I knew that government reserve area was reserved for government. But you are now seeing that encroachment, where people are moving into areas where they're supposed not to build, where one person built and there is no consequences. Another built. Before you know, it becomes, you see, a city from a place where ordinarily they shouldn't have built. Now, two, I think is the reason why government demolish is because of standardization. All right, we have seen quite a number of building coming down and so many casualties, and at the end of the day, fingers are always pointed at the government. All right, so because people are looking for where to stay, government cannot close their eyes on the illegality that is going on. Now, what should government do at this point? Government should begin, anytime I drive past Wemco Road, I saw empty apartments built by what is his name? Fashola in those estates. Because they are way out of reach of the common man. The people that bought those houses, there's one that people are occupying, there's the other one that absolutely empty. People are not occupying it because you cannot even afford to pay the rent. And the rooms are tiny. Everywhere is not very convenient for people to live. However, government should be able to build these houses and make it affordable to people. There is no need for you to build a house, use government money, people's money to build housing, and at the end of the day, people cannot afford to live in those houses. So I think that is where the problem comes from. And I still dove my cap for Babake Kere, the former governor of Lagos State, Lateef Jakonde. What he did was phenomenal. Any governor of this country has never done what he did. And I don't know why they didn't go to his book and borrow a leaf from what he has done in housing alone. He's almost solved the problem he almost solved the problem of housing in Lagos. Yes, the current occupants of those housing are not keeping those places clean, especially the one in Festa. I went there almost puked. But what did they do? People are living there. When government builds, they ensure that the builders use genuine materials and build. And you have not heard that the government houses have come down. You cannot hear that because government must ensure that those houses follow due processes. But when individuals leave housing because government now has fallen back, I don't know, like I used to say, like Minister of Housing, like Minister of Water Resources, both of them are moribund. If they are not working, they should be scrapped. People are in those ministries earning salary. There is a minister earning extra code, earning allowances, earning salary. What is his job? What is his job? Fashola did wonderful job in Lagos with those houses. Yes, those houses are way out of our reach. But he was a minister of housing in Nigeria. What did he do with it?
All right, this issue of housing, it's a very attendant problem, especially in Lagos State. It is. A lot of people are homeless. All right, look around you, and the reality of it stares you in the face. There was a time when, under the bridge, the government went and vacated everybody, who were taking up residence there. But then people are back living under the bridges. In fact, people are now living on street medians. Those.
Yes.
If they are wide enough, you see a woman with children, a man with. People are living even on bridges.
Under the bridges. People are living almost everywhere. In fact, in my own area, it's becoming a trend because you don't even know your neighbor anymore. It's only in the night that you see this person taking some portion near your place to live. In the morning, you cannot see them. So they can actually attack you at night and you cannot find anybody. And that's why, look at what is happening in Abuja today. Kidnappers everywhere, and people are, and you think those kidnappers are the ones that have houses in Asokoro. They are not. They are not. They are the people you cannot trace.
All right. Housing is a fundamental human right, and in section 16, subsection 2D, the Nigerian Constitution provides for the state to direct its policies towards assuring that suitable and adequate shelter is provided for all citizens, all citizens. But this, we have seen the opposite actually over the years. All right. Now, like I mentioned earlier, also the housing deficit in Nigeria is huge, and it continues widening. Currently, we're talking about 28 million housing units. All right, for literally everybody to have a place to stay. 28 million housing units. And that's going to
across Nigeria.
Yes, and that's going to cause the government about.
And the insurgency has also contributed to that.
Exactly. A lot of people have, left their homes and all. Yeah. So it's going to take about 21 trillion naira for that gap to be closed. And unfortunately, those affected the most the poor working class in the country. All right.